Coming up on Arirang News, North Korea test fires 2 short-range ballistic missiles and acts banned under UN sanctions. South Korea, the United States, and Japan are monitoring the situation, the U.S. calling the move destabilizing. South Korea's foreign minister meets in Seoul with his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi, calling for China's cooperation in achieving peace on the Korean Peninsula. That message also from President Moon, who met with the Chinese envoy at the Blue House. And South Korea continues to see a recovery in jobs. Payrolls up by more than 500,000 in August compared to a year earlier. This despite the Seoul area still being under the strictest level of social distancing. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea's jobs numbers continue to improve from last year's low points in the pandemic. The number of people employed in August was up on year for a 6th month in a row, and that's despite the capital area enforcing the highest level of distancing measures. Kim Sung-min reports.
South Korea reported higher on-year job figures for the 6th month in a row in August, despite the 4th wave of COVID-19 infections. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, over 27.6 million people were employed last month, up roughly 518,000 on year.
Despite the toughest social distancing level in the capital area and virus prevention measures, employment improved in August thanks to robust exports and the base effect from the previous year.
But the pace of growth has slowed for the 4th straight month. August job additions were around 24,000 lower than July's increase. By age group, the number of people in their 30s who were employed also dropped for the 18th consecutive month. This was due in part to a decrease in the population of that age group. In terms of sectors, in-person services continue to suffer amid the ongoing pandemic. The largest job losses were in retail, which had 113,000 fewer jobs last month than a year earlier. The manufacturing industry saw the loss of 76,000 jobs, the biggest fall in 6 months. Most of those job losses occurred in the automobile sector due to constant production line stoppages, but the textiles and electric goods sectors also saw notable job losses. On the other hand, employment and healthcare saw the biggest on-year rise, adding 243,000 more jobs. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports of automobiles increased in August, marking the 8th consecutive month of growth. The Trade Ministry said Wednesday that the value of automobile exports increased by nearly 17% last month compared to a year earlier, hitting $3 billion for the month. The rise was in large part on an increase in sales of eco-friendly cars, which hit an all-time high. They accounted for 23% of the total. Shipments of hydrogen cars rose 238% on year, and electric vehicle exports jumped 91%. An American electric vehicle startup has become the first company to start mass producing an electric pickup truck, taking the lead in a race with its competitors, including Tesla and General Motors. Rivian founder and CEO R.J. Scaringe tweeted that the company's first electric pickup, the R1T, was rolled off the line Tuesday local time at its plant in Illinois. The R1T will start at $73,000. It has a range of 314 miles on one charge, about 500 kilometers, and uses battery cells made by Samsung SDI. Rivian was founded in 2009 and has stayed largely under the radar, but last month filed for an IPO with a valuation as high as $80 billion. A big day for the tech industry on Tuesday, with Apple unveiling its new iPhone models. The iPhone 13 has an upgraded camera and display, as well as a longer battery life. The camera in particular has a new cinematic mode that gives video a certain depth effect and lets the user adjust the focus even after shooting. Jang reports.
Apple officially unveiled the mainstream models for its phone lineup, the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 13 mini on Tuesday U.S. time. They come in 5 different colors: pink, blue, midnight, starlight, and red. The new models are equipped with the A15 Bionic chip, giving them super fast performance and power efficiency. Both models feature a dual camera system with bigger pixels and sensor shift optical image stabilization, offering improvements for low light photos and videos. plus a brighter Super Retina XDR display.
Customers who consume a lot of content on the move. What Apple has done with the iPhone 13 is actually catch up with Samsung in terms of that screen refresh rate. The 120 hertz, the ProMotion feature now is equal to what Samsung offers on their devices.
Apple also announced a new cinematic mode for video that allows for a rack focus effect to change the focus during a video. So, when recording a video, it will automatically transition focus while filming in real time, shifting focus when people enter the frame or glance away from the camera. The iPhone and iPhone mini both have a longer battery life, with the iPhone 13 offering up to 2.5 more hours a day than the iPhone 12, and the iPhone 13 mini provides up to an hour and a half more than the iPhone 12 mini. Storage options range from 128GB to 512GB. The price for the iPhone 13 mini starts at $699, while the regular iPhone 13 model starts at $799. At the same event, Apple also introduced the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max.
This is our most pro iPhone ever, with our fastest performance, most advanced display, and most powerful camera system ever in an iPhone.
It has 4 available colors: graphite, gold, silver, and Sierra blue. Both models introduce all-new Super Retina XDR display with ProMotion and get up to 1 terabyte of storage. The price of the iPhone 13 Pro starts at $999, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max will cost $1,099 for the standard model. Pre-orders for the iPhone 13 and 13 mini will start on September 17th, ahead of a September 24th release date. In South Korea, however, Apple will begin pre-orders from October 1st, ahead of its release on October 8th. 장태현, Arirang News.
The South Korean government is extending the due dates for loans and interest payments for another 6 months for small business owners impacted by the pandemic. The chairman of the Financial Services Commission, Ko Seung-bum, during a meeting Wednesday with the ruling Democratic Party, said payments due on September 30th will be deferred until next March. These debt relief measures were first introduced in April 2020, just as the pandemic began, and have been extended twice. The FSC will also provide financial assistance to banks so they can extend deadlines themselves after the March deadline. Shares of Korea's big online platform operators Kakao and Naver have been falling since regulators last week announced plans to look closely at their business practices as they expand aggressively into other sectors. They're accused of abusing their dominant positions in the market, hurting consumers and their contractors. For more on this, we have our Min Soo-kyun joining us in the studio today. Soo-kyun, welcome back.
Thank you, Devin.
Well, Kakao and Naver shares extended their losses today, and in fact, their shares are down significantly over the past week since the Fair Trade Commission made this announcement.
Well, like you said, shares in South Korea's platform giants Kakao and Naver have been dipping for days. The stock price of Kakao has fallen by 19.5%, while Naver plunged 9.5% over the past 5 trading days. In terms of market cap, the two have lost a total of $20 billion over the last week as foreign investors and institutions offloaded their shares.
So, Soo-kyun, what's the issue? Obviously, these two companies have attracted the attention of regulators as their businesses have grown so fast over the past decade. This doesn't seem to bode well.
Well, one major factor is the government's latest move to regulate sales of financial products on online platforms. Last Tuesday, the country's financial regulators said that the recommendations of financial products by fintech platforms like Kakao Pay and Naver Financial are against the Financial Consumer Protection Act, which took effect in March this year. Under the new law, recommending financial products such as funds and insurance plans on online platforms is considered an act of intermediation and not an act of advertisement. And so fintech firms have been asked to make appropriate revisions to their online platforms. Starting September 25th, Kakao Pay, Naver Financial, and other fintech platforms will not be allowed to compare and recommend financial products to their users unless they register with the regulators and receive a license or permission to carry out those services.
So we started with the regulatory scrutiny, and then you just told us about the revision, the law to protect financial consumers, and now lawmakers are looking at other measures that would take further action to deal with the harm being done to small businesses and contractors.
That's right, Devin. So several lawmakers have vowed to take action against online platform giants due to their growing market dominance and rising business expansions, I guess. Kakao, for example, has expanded its business portfolio and currently has 118 affiliates under its wing, a significant rise from the 45 it had 6 years ago. Policymakers at this point feel it's necessary to protect small businesses as they believe small family-owned stores or retail shops listed as sellers on the platforms have not been protected properly. There's actually a few pending bills at the National Assembly aimed at preventing unfair business practices by online platform operators, which, if passed, will lead to tighter regulations on big tech.
Well, all this pressure seems to have led Kakao to announce this new fund that will actually be used to help small businesses, and they're also getting out of some sectors where there are ordinary people trying to make a living.
Yes, that's right. So following a meeting with major affiliates on Tuesday, Kakao has decided to set up a fund worth $250 million to support small businesses on its platform over the next 5 years. The company will also turn its investment wing, the K-Cube Holdings, into a social enterprise to fund key programs such as education and climate change. Also, Kakao Mobility will stop some of its services, such as deliveries of flowers and snacks, and Kakao Taxi will end its service that lets users pay an extra fee to hail a cab faster. Kakao Chairman Kim Bom-soo said that the company will seek ways to change and develop more cooperative business models with its partners, moving away from its previous growth model. The announcement of this so-called coexistence plan is seen as a move to appease regulators and regain investor confidence.
For Kakao to continue its business in the future, it should focus on its social responsibility to build a good corporate image. In this sense, the coexistence plan might have been announced after the company considered its long-term business growth and looked to clear its negative publicity.
It also comes as Kakao Pay, the financial arm of Kakao Group, is preparing for an IPO before the end of this year.
Right, so shares of Kakao and Naver, as we discussed, are down, and it seems like the pressure on them could still intensify. So what do you think the impact on their share price is going to be in the longer term?
Well, the shares of the nation's top two platform operators are expected to gradually recover over time. Take a listen.
Since Kakao has taken a step back following its Tuesday announcement to support small businesses, its shares will enter a calm phase. Naver, which is facing the same regulations as Kakao, will also see its shares recover.
While there is a possibility that shares might drop again once some of their services face new regulations, experts remain optimistic about the long-term growth prospects for Naver and Kakao.
So Korea is tightening regulations on these two companies. It's also made headlines recently dealing with Apple and Google. Some pretty landmark rulings there. But what are other countries doing in terms of reining in their tech giants?
Well, countries around the world are moving to limit the market power of tech giants as well. In June, the U.S. Introduced 5 antitrust bills designed to rein in big tech companies such as Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. Meanwhile, China has also set tougher digital finance and anti-monopoly guidelines as well. In April, the Chinese government fined online platform Alibaba a record $2.8 billion over anti-competitive practices.
Well, it does seem that numerous governments see a problem with the dominance of these companies, and as you say, they're taking action. So we'll look forward to you following those developments for us. Thank you for your very thorough reporting today, Sukhan.
Thank you for having me.
North Korea this afternoon test-fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles toward the East Sea. Just last weekend, it launched cruise missiles, which are not banned by sanctions, but these ballistic missiles are. For more, we have our Kim Dami on the line for us. Dami, this seems like an escalation by the North.
That's right, Devin. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff said that the missiles have been fired at 12:34 and 12:39 this afternoon from North Korea's Yangdeok, Pyeongan-namdo province. They flew some 800 kilometers and reached an altitude of some 60 kilometers. Since their launch are from inland rather than in a coastal area, it's highly likely the weapons have been test-fired before, and today's launch is aimed at showing off the North's confidence in its missile capabilities and to test an increase in flight distance of pre-existing weapons. Now, just looking at the flight distance and maximum height, an expert said there is a possibility that today's test fire could be the modified version of the KN-23 missile that was fired on March 25th using transporter erector launchers. As you mentioned, some pundits say this is an escalation of tensions from North Korea. It held a scaled-down military parade last Thursday to mark the 73rd anniversary of its founding and followed that with the North's report of cruise missile tests, and now this, the firing of ballistic missiles, in which, unlike the cruise missiles, are a violation of United Nations sanctions. The latest missile launch is the 5th provocation by North Korea this year. The Blue House said President Moon Jae-in had been immediately notified of the recent North Korean launch. He's expected to be briefed in more detail after an emergency National Security Council meeting this afternoon. Meanwhile, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga called the launch an outrage and stated the missiles are presumed to have landed outside Japan's exclusive economic zone.
Well, Dami, obviously a developing situation, a complicated situation. What impact do you think this will have on efforts to revive the denuclearization talks? So the U.S. has called the launch destabilizing.
Right, so we'll have to wait and see on the results of the NSC meeting to see whether South Korea will strongly denounce the latest firings, as well as whether officials will reveal their assessment of the security situation on the Korean Peninsula. But the latest provocation further puts a dent in the high level of optimism of the South Korean government, which had argued the North had a strong willingness to denuclearize and that momentum for dialogue could be revived. We're also waiting to see how Washington will respond to the latest missile launch and whether the latest launch will serve as a tipping point in its policies directed toward North Korea. Back to you, Devin.
All right, our Kim Dami reporting there. Thank you for that, Dami. And the foreign ministers of South Korea and China held talks this morning. That was just before the North's launch of those missiles. During their talks, South Korea's foreign minister asked for ongoing support from China for the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Yoon Jung-min reports.
Meeting his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on Wednesday, South Korea's Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong asked for China's consistent support for the Korean Peninsula Peace Process, calling Beijing a key partner needed to achieve that goal.
South Korea and China have worked together closely as key partners for the common goal of the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and lasting peace. We hope for Beijing's consistent support for our government's Korean Peninsula Peace Process.
In response, Wang highlighted their strengthened bilateral ties, calling South Korea an inseparable partner.
China and South Korea are close neighbors that cannot be moved and partners that cannot leave each other. We hope to strengthen our bilateral community awareness, constantly expand upon our common interests, and seek further avenues of potential cooperation.
Speaking to reporters after the meeting, Wang said all parties should work together to resume dialogue with the North, and he hopes all do their part for peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. Wang referred to Pyongyang's test firing last weekend of cruise missiles, saying that North Korea is not the only one engaging in military action, those remarks possibly meant for the U.S. Hours later, with the Chinese diplomat still in Seoul, North Korea test-fired ballistic missiles. When asked whether China intends to invite North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to the Beijing Winter Olympics, Wang said it's an international custom to invite other countries through the International Olympic Committee. Regarding South Korea's relationship with the U.S., the Chinese foreign minister emphasized yet again that Seoul and Beijing are inseparable neighbors and partners to each other. He was critical of the U.S.-led intel sharing program Five Eyes, calling it byproduct of the Cold War era. Recently, the U.S. House of Representatives has considered including South Korea in the intel sharing program, apparently a move against the rise of China and Russia. He added that Chinese President Xi Jinping thinks it's important to visit South Korea and that it can happen once the COVID-19 pandemic situation gets under control. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And President Moon Jae-in has called for China's unwavering support for denuclearization and peace on the Korean Peninsula. Moon on Wednesday held talks with China's top diplomat Wang Yi at the Blue House, where he vowed continued efforts along with the international community, including Beijing. Take a listen.
중국의 변함없는 지지를 바라며 앞으로도 우리 왕 의원이 한중 관계 발전과 한반도 비핵화 및 평화 정착을 위한 우리 정부의 노력을 뒷받침해 주는 큰 역할을 해 주시기를 기대합니다. 감사합니다.
During the 40-minute meeting, the top office said Moon promised South Korea support for a successful Beijing Winter Olympics early next year. And he said he hopes the Games are an opportunity to develop ties with North Korea, like the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. Wang said he'll work to make that opportunity happen. Moon also highlighted the need to continue bilateral exchanges despite the pandemic, while Wang pledged continued communication to arrange a visit to South Korea by Chinese President Xi Jinping when conditions allow. They also agreed to further develop their strategic partnership, especially with next year marking 3 decades of diplomatic relations. In other news, South Korea today reported more than 2,000 new cases of COVID-19 for the first time in almost a week. The number of cases in the city of Seoul was at an all-time high, and most of those were among young people. As for the vaccine campaign, so far more than 67% of the population have gotten at least 1 dose, and that's expected to reach 70% by the end of the week. Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea reported 2,080 cases of COVID-19 on Wednesday. The daily tally jumped by more than 580 cases from the day before, which saw low numbers as fewer tests were done over the weekend. All but 23 were locally transmitted cases, with 80% coming from the capital region. 804 cases were reported in Seoul alone, and this is the highest figure ever witnessed in the city. Authorities said 60% of Wednesday's cases were from people in their 20s to 40s. Infections might be concentrated in the capital region right now, but authorities are concerned that they could spread nationwide with the upcoming Chuseok holiday.
We strongly ask that people only visit hometowns if their parents are fully vaccinated, and that they keep to small groups, and that those who aren't vaccinated take PCR tests.
Researchers also confirmed that it is crucial to ventilate rooms frequently and reduce gatherings as much as possible, as these measures are proven to reduce the risk of infection. More than 92% of adults who contracted the virus over the past 2 weeks were either unvaccinated or had not been fully vaccinated. There are also growing concerns over increasing numbers of Delta variant cases, as it accounted for 99.5% of all newly confirmed mutant cases over the past week. So far, South Korea has reported a total of 4,700 breakthrough infections, with 8 in 10 found to be linked to variant cases. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
There's a typhoon on its way to South Korea. That's Typhoon Chanthu, which is expected to bring torrential rain to Jeju Island and the southern coast this Thursday and Friday. That could complicate vacation plans for those planning to travel for the Chuseok holiday, which starts this weekend. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
Typhoon Chanthu will bring torrential rain to South Korea's southern region starting Thursday ahead of the Chuseok holiday. As of Wednesday afternoon, the typhoon is some 300 kilometers south of Seogwipo, Jeju Island. By 9 p.m., it will have traveled further northeast and will get closer to the island by Thursday night. It is expected to keep moving up in the same direction, making its way toward the south coast near Busan by Friday. Then it is forecast to pass through the Korea Strait by Saturday morning, heading towards the Japanese city of Nagoya. The 14th typhoon of the year is forecast to bring some 1,000 millimeters of torrential rain. Large parts of the south of the country will be affected. The hardest hit region will be Jeju, especially from Thursday afternoon to Friday afternoon, where from 100 to 300 millimeters of rain is expected, along with strong gusts. Jeollado and Gyeongsangnam-do provinces will get from 30 to 80 millimeters on Friday. However, the rain won't reach Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, and Gangwon-do provinces. Typhoon Chanthu's wind speed could reach up to 29 meters per second or about 105 kilometers an hour. It is not categorized as strong typhoon, but it is still powerful enough to blow a roof off a building. Much caution is required, especially for those traveling ahead of the country's major Chuseok holiday. Young-eun, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.